Back live, we continue right here at Pittsburgh CW. Bob Pompeani and Paul Zeise with you at 412-575-2600 is the number. The Steelers have the bye week. They'll have a chance to watch some of the games, relax, and then get back to work against Cleveland. So, Monday, Paul, when they adjourn or reappear, will Le'Veon Bell be there?
No. I don't think he will. I don't think he will.
When do you think, if you're going to wait till week 10?
I think he will be there on the Tuesday after the Browns game.
Okay, so that's leaving. Well, first of all,
Isn't that the trade deadline day?
Yeah.
That's when I think he'll be there.
We'll see.
I think he'll show up at 4:05 and sign his deal where they can't trade him. That's what I believe.
Let's go out to line one. That's Stephen in Finleyville. Hey, Stephen, welcome. How are you?
This is David. Bob, how are you tonight? Thanks
Good,
for
thanks.
taking my call.
Anytime.
I would like to ask your opinion and Paul's opinion. Considering how Artie Burns has been playing, would you even think about acquiring maybe Patrick Peterson since Arizona?
He's off the boards. Arizona said yesterday he will not be traded. So the answer is no. And quite frankly, they're stuck with this is kind of late into a football season for anyone to be picked up unless you make a trade, and it's so unusual to make them. We saw one today for running backs. But at the same time, I'm not of the belief the Steelers are going to do anything, Paul. They're going to have who they have, and they're going to have to figure out how to get better individually on this team.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting Jacksonville was able to get Carlos Hyde for a 5th-round pick. I think, you know what, here's the thing. If the Steelers could find a corner, they're not going to get Patrick Peterson or somebody like that, but if they could find a corner that might be able to help them and someone was willing to take them for, a 4th-round pick or something, maybe, but it's just not going to happen. That's just generally not how they do things.
Right. Line 2 we go. It's Brad in Mount Lebanon. Hey, Brad, how are you tonight? Welcome to the Sports Call. Go ahead.
Thank you very much for taking my call. You guys do great. So my big thing of Bell needs good adjustment, and he returns to the Steelers.
Brad, your phone is, I don't know what's going on with it, but you may want to try it back. You had something about Le'Veon Bell. His role, I think, is what you were talking about when he comes back. His role will be back up to James Conner to start, and I think that's how it should be. Beyond that, who knows? It just depends on how things work out. I don't think anyone's here to try to figure it out or predict anything, because you can't predict anything, Paul.
No.
I think if Le'Veon Bell, however, had said from the very beginning that I'm going to sit out until week 10, and that's the way I'm not duping anyone, I think it would have been much clearer. I don't think there would have been much response other than, okay, it's a business, he should do it.
I don't know that he knew what he wanted to do. I think
he changed his mind.
Yeah, I think it's changed, and I think he's changed his mind a couple of times.
Well, but
because a couple of weeks ago, didn't he tell Jeremy? Well, he didn't tell Jeremy Fowler, but he spoke to Jeremy Fowler, and then in the same story, Jeremy Fowler said, "Well, sources tell me," right. Which generally lets you believe that probably the source was him. But my point is, he was supposed to come back Monday, and he didn't. And sources had told some reporters, remember, he was going to come back the day after Labor Day.
Right. And
so I think that really with him, it's just a matter of I don't think he really knows what he wants to do.
Well, one of his options could be sitting out the entire season and really challenging the Steelers. Let's go to Jim in Mount Lebanon. Hey, Jim, how are you?
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Okay, what's up?
Hey, 2 questions. Number 1, I don't think Bell's ever going to come back. And number 2, the Penguins, Crosby hasn't scored a goal yet.
No, he hasn't. No goals in 6 games. I believe that's the longest streak of his career, and I don't worry about him, though. He still has made plays. He's had chances. It'll go in time. I thought they played a really good game last night. That's the kind of road hockey game against a good team you have to play. Featured a lot of, back and forth, but also some good back-checking, some good checking period from both teams, Paul. So I don't worry about Sidney Crosby because I think I've seen enough over the years to know he will get his share of points.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, why worry about it? I mean, again, there's 76 games left. I'm pretty sure he's going to score some goals.
To Tommy in Bridgeville. Hey, Tommy, how are you?
Hey, guys, how you doing?
All right,
I'm
what's
just
up?
sitting here watching the NLCS, and I've seen 2 situations now where the batter has been awarded first base on an automatic walk. Now, going back to my days in, Little League, high school, errors happen. You have to throw 4 balls to the catcher to put a guy on first base. stuff happens in baseball, and I just think it's I don't know. It's not baseball.
The whole idea, which is stupid when you think about it, and thanks for the call, it's a good point, was to speed the game up. And they're taking these little tiny steps like, okay, when you want to intentionally walk someone, just go to first. Okay, fine. What does that save? How many seconds? They have games that go 5 hours. They have games this postseason that have been 4 hours and 30 minutes for a 9-inning game, Paul. To me, there's no stopping this. It's not going to end. It is what it is. And how do you do to cut off an hour? We're not talking about 10 minutes. We're talking about an hour.
I think you severely limit the mound visits, which they've tried to do, but that's part of it. The other part of it is a pitch clock. I think that they've got to do that. Especially in the playoffs. These games are so hard to watch. In between, I mean, he's talking about, oh, well, you know, their errors happen and all this other stuff. Very, very rare for that to happen in Major League Baseball. But more importantly, because there's so much time in between pitches in these playoff games, they're probably saving 15 minutes every time they walk. I mean, I love it. I love baseball. But these playoff games are hard to watch because of that.
They really are. But it is what it is. And if that's the way it is, then just deal with it. That's what, they start the game so late. Yep. The other night I stayed up till 2:20, and I still was tweeting about it because I was wide awake. And it was 2:20 before. Now, that game went 13 innings, but still, 2:20. Who's watching that at that hour on the East Coast? Let's go to line one. That's Ray in the north side. Ray, how you doing?
Hey, Bob. Got a question for you pertaining to Le'Veon Bell. We know we've seen him with all his buddies and his rap clubs and everything and hanging out. You think there's any possible chance the reason he hasn't been coming in is because maybe he's doing a little bit of smoking with all his rapper friends? And if he does come in, he's going to get a very large suspension and be out for a year anyway.
Well, if he fears he's testing positive, he won't show up. Maybe that is it. I don't know. I will say this. It becomes a possibility because of his history. He's done this before twice. He's been suspended before twice. So I had someone call me the other night, Paul, and say it's unfair to speculate. Why is it unfair? He's not here. He's had 2 pot suspensions. Would you think it's unfair? That could be it for all we know.
Right. No, I mean, there's that. There's so many different things with this guy. Until he comes here, it's kind of just one of those things where we all could either speculate or just say, let's just wait to see what happens.
But speculation is out there because of his history.
Of course, absolutely. I mean, he's brought that on himself. It is what it is. It's just, you don't get the benefit of the doubt when you've been suspended, twice, 2 or 3 times or whatever it is. You don't get the benefit of that.
And that's why a future employer may say, wait a minute, you're one of these away from, and we're guaranteeing you a lot of money. That's a risky business. We're going to take a break, come back with more. 412-575-2600 right here on Pittsburgh CW.